The cardboard sign in the toy store window read, "Today only," in letters so bright they looked like a taunt. And Renata Cole stood frozen on the sidewalk outside, her daughter's small hand slipping from hers as the little girl pressed her face against the glass to look at the Barbie doll displayed inside like a treasure behind museum glass. Renata's heart cracked in that instant, not because of the price tag, but because tomorrow was her daughter's 7th birthday, and for the first time in her life, Renata Cole did not know how she was going to give her child a single thing to unwrap. The morning sun spilled gold across the pavement of downtown Ashford Falls, warming the shoulders of tired commuters rushing past the little strip of shops, unaware that a woman's entire world was quietly collapsing just a few feet away from them. Renata had lost her job at the textile factory 3 months earlier when the company relocated overseas, and since then she had scraped together odd cleaning jobs, sold what furniture she could spare, and stretched every dollar until it screamed for mercy. She had promised herself she would never let her daughter, Ren, feel the weight of their hardship. But standing there, watching Ren's eyes shimmer with quiet hope at the sight of that doll, Renata felt the promise slipping through her fingers like water. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that a single act of compassion can change someone's entire life, take a moment right now to like this video, drop a comment, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Whispering Tales Stories. Because what happens next in Renata's story might just restore your faith in humanity. Ren tugged gently at her mother's sleeve, her voice small and hesitant, the kind of voice children use when they already sense they shouldn't ask for something, but cannot help themselves. She asked if Renata thought Santa still remembered birthdays, and Renata, swallowing the lump rising in her throat, knelt down on the sidewalk and cupped her daughter's face in her hands. She told her as gently as she could that this year might be different, that money was tight, and that she could not afford the doll in the window. She watched Ren's small shoulders sag, watched her nod with a maturity no 7-year-old should ever have to carry, and it was in that moment right there on the sunlit sidewalk that a black town car slowed to a stop at the curb behind them. The man who stepped out of the car wore a tailored charcoal suit that looked like it cost more than Renata's monthly rent, and he moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who had never once in his life had to wonder where his next meal was coming from. His name was Julian Ashcombe, and he was, as it happened, the CEO of Ashcombe Retail Group, the very company that owned the toy store, chain in front of which Renata and Ren now stood. He had stopped by unannounced, as he often did, to walk through one of his stores and see how his employees treated customers, a habit his late father had instilled in him long before the company bore his name. He had not expected to witness anything more than restocked shelves and polite greetings, but instead he found himself standing a few feet away, close enough to hear a mother whisper words that broke something open inside his chest. Julian had grown up in comfort, but he had not always been shielded from struggle in the way people assumed. His own mother had raised him for a handful of years on nothing but grit and second-hand clothes, before his father's business finally found its footing, and something about the sight of Renata Cole kneeling on the pavement, protecting her daughter's heart with gentle honesty instead of empty promises, pulled him straight back to a memory he had buried deep. He remembered his mother's hands trembling as she explained why there would be no gifts that year, and he remembered how she had cried quietly in the kitchen after he had gone to bed, believing he was asleep and would never know. Watching Renata now, he realized he was looking at his mother all over again, and something in him refused to simply walk away. He approached slowly, careful not to startle them, and introduced himself simply as Julian, without mentioning his title or the name stitched into the awning above their heads. He asked Ren what her favorite color was, and when she shyly answered lavender, he smiled in a way that seemed to surprise even himself, a smile that had nothing to do with boardrooms or quarterly earnings. He asked Renata if he could speak with her for a moment, and though she stiffened with the instinctive wariness of someone who had learned that strangers rarely offered kindness without a price, something about his eyes convinced her to listen. He did not offer her charity in the way she feared, the kind that comes wrapped in pity and leaves a person feeling smaller than before. Instead, he asked her about herself, really asked the way so few people had in months. He learned that she had once trained as a bookkeeper before life pulled her in different directions, that she had a steady hand for numbers and an even steadier heart for her daughter, and that despite everything stacked against her, she had never once stopped believing that things could turn around if she just held on a little longer. Julian listened the way his father had taught him to listen to people who mattered, not for what they could offer him, but for who they truly were beneath their circumstances. Before they parted ways that afternoon, Julian did something that would ripple through Renata's life in ways she could not yet imagine. He handed her a business card, told her to come by his company's headquarters the following morning, and mentioned almost in passing that his accounting department had an opening that had gone unfilled for weeks. He said nothing about the toy store, nothing about Ren's birthday, and Renata walked away that day believing she had simply had an unusual, if kind, conversation with a stranger. But early the next morning, on the exact day of Ren's 7th birthday, a delivery truck pulled up outside their small apartment building, and 2 men carried in a stack of boxes taller than Ren herself. Renata stood in the doorway in stunned silence as her daughter tore into wrapping paper to reveal not just the lavender-dressed Barbie she had admired through the store glass, but an entire dollhouse, complete with tiny furniture and a note tucked inside the box that simply read, "Every child deserves to believe in birthdays. Every mother deserves to believe in herself, too. Come find me when you're ready to build something bigger than either of us imagined." It was signed only with the initial J, and it took Renata a full day to realize that the kind stranger from the sidewalk and the CEO of the very company, address on her new job offer, were one and the same man. She started work in the accounting department 3 weeks later, nervous and unsure, but steady in the way she had always been, and within a year her quiet competence and tireless work ethic caught the attention of executives who had never known her name before. Julian mentioned it to the right people. She rose from an entry-level position to a role managing budgets for the very stores that had once felt impossibly out of reach, and every single day she walked past that toy store window, no longer as a woman aching with helplessness, but as a mother who had found her footing again, one small, determined step at a time. Julian never asked for anything in return, never made her feel indebted, and never let the story become about his own generosity. He simply believed, as his mother had once taught him, that sometimes the most powerful thing a person with much can do for a person with little is not to hand over money, but to hand over an opportunity, a shred of dignity, a reason to hope again. And Ren, now older, still keeps that lavender Barbie on her shelf, not because of what it cost, but because of what it represented, the day the world reminded her mother that kindness had not disappeared from it after all. If this story touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you that a single act of compassion can rewrite someone's entire future, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment below, and share it with someone who might need a little hope today. Because stories like Renata's deserve to be heard by as many hearts as possible. And if you made it all the way here, drop the word hope in the comments below, just so we know you're part of this story too. Renata Cole never forgot that sidewalk, that whispered confession, or the stranger who chose to stop when the whole world seemed to be walking past her. And somewhere in Ashford Falls, a little girl named Ren grew up believing, without a single doubt in her heart, that even in the darkest moments, someone out there is always watching, ready to remind us that kindness, real kindness, never truly runs out.